in-screed heater installation for a dry area. What you will need for an in-screed heater installation, if you can hire one or if you have one, a nail gun, and then the fixing rails which will get supplied to you in your kit pack, some tin snips to cut the fixing rails, and obviously the associated nails for the nail gun. You'll also need a tape measure and then a spray can or a crown just to mark out the area that you are laying to work out your area calculations. Have some insulation tape to help you tie your cold tails onto the draw wire and able to draw them up the conduits. And then safety items for OH&S are eye protection, earmuffs and gloves. And having a cable reel is also very handy. If you don't have one, put it on a broomstick over 2 boxes. So ensure the area that you want to install the heating is nice and clear. So give it a good sweep. Working out your floor area, it's just a matter of going around the room, marking 10 to 15 centimeters off the wall and mark out your cabinetry, and then break the area up into little rectangles and work out each rectangle what the area is. Once you've done that, then you can add up all your areas and total them up. In this example, we are getting 16 square meters. So you will find the formula on the box to calculate your cable spacing, but it's basically your square meterage, the square meters that you'd calculate, in this case 16 times 1,000, and then you divide it by the cable length. This is now found on a sticker on the end of your cold tail, or it is also found on the sticker that it's on the box. In this case, we are dividing it by 140, and then to be on the conservative side, you can add 10 millimeters. And so in our example here, we get to 124.3. What's always easiest is just to round it up to the nearest 5 or 10. So in our case, 124, we will round up to 125. So here you can see I'm marking out the fixtures before I do my calculations. Have a plan for the layout of your floor heating. So you must decide which way to lay your fixing rails. It is best to lay the cable along the length of the room, so the fixing rails must run 90 degrees to the length of your cable runs. Once you have calculated your cable spacing and planned your heater layout, you can start laying out your fixing rails. Here in this photo you can see the yellow lines are indicating the fixing rails that are at the end of your runs, and then give or take every 1 to 1.5 meters you put another fixing rail in between the runs. This is so that the heating cable will hold its position along the full length of the run. Where the end of your laying area is at an angle, then you will need to cut a whole lot of shorter pieces of fixing rail, roughly 30 to 40 centimeters long, and then you can place them individually when you are laying that individual loop and nail down that particular fixing rail. The next one will then be at a shorter distance or a longer distance. We'll show you exactly how to secure the heater cable onto the fixing rail later in this video. When you are unrolling your fixing rail, sometimes the middle finger tends to catch and then stick out. It's best to push these flat so that they do not affect the way it lays face down onto the concrete. Please ensure when you are placing your fixing rails onto the concrete, they are laid this way up and not like this. This will not work. Fix the fixing rails by your chosen method. Once you've nailed down your fixing rails at the end of your runs, you can go along and lifting up each particular loop of the fixing rail for however much spacing you require. Each of the loops are 25 millimeters. So if your cable spacing calculation is 125 millimeters, then you will need every 5th loop of the fixing rail to be lifted up. Once you've done this, the full length of your fixing rail, you can then come along with your nail gun or whatever means you are fixing to the floor, and you can then fix to the floor between each of the loops that you've lifted up. Remember, when you are laying the cable, there's a fair amount of tension on this end fixing rail, and hence you will need nails at just about every loop. For the fixing rails that have been laid out at 1 to 1.5 meter spacings within the length of the run, the red lines in this photo, these do not need to be nailed down at each cable run. Next up is affixing your cold tail to the draw wire with your insulation tape, and then you can feed it up the conduit and pull the draw wire, feeding the cold tail in at the bottom and pull it all the way up to the top. You can then connect your monitor. Make sure you connect the green alligator clip to the green wire. The other two, it doesn't matter which way they get attached, so long as the green to green. That's the most important one. Attaching the cable for the loops, it's best to do it this way. Lift up the middle finger of the fixing loop, place the cable between the finger and the loop, fold the little finger over the cable, then fold the loop in the opposite direction to the finger, having the finger going underneath the loop. And once you've folded this loop over completely, you then fold the finger back on itself over the loop. This locks it into position. Then place your thumb on this fixing attachment and bend the cable through 90 degrees in the direction of where you will be fixing the cable to the next fixing rail loop. Repeat this process and then continue laying the cable out down the run to the other end and repeat the process once again. After you've completed a few full runs, ensure you go back and secure the cable to the fixing rail in the middle of those few runs that you've now laid. When you get to the end of the cable, make sure the end of the cable does not end off in the middle of one of the runs. Bring this end of the cable back to a fixing rail that is going to be the opposite end to where your next cable is coming from. When you bring the next cable, where the first cable looped, your second cable will loop from the opposite direction, giving you a nice straight run for the successive runs when placing the cable. Remember, when you get to the end of your area and you still have cable left over, is just to lay the cable freehand, attaching fixing rails every meter and a half along the edge of the room until you have reached the end of the cable.